What do you do in TOC to help parents to understand that because they're the first teachers, even if the school is doing everything it is supposed to do, they still have a responsibility when their child comes home to pick up from
And absolutely, and it comes from good faith, right? Parents are believing in the system. They can trust their teachers. They trust the administration to take care and to educate our children to become successful or whatever it is that they're going to be coming, citizens in the future. So we have that trust, but we have also found out that even though sometimes they do have that good intention, some things are not happening. And this is when we need to step in and say, look, I've noticed that my child is learning something that my other child, when he was in that grade, he wasn't really learning that. So what's going on? Is it because the curriculum changed? What's changing? So, parents need to be alert. I'm a parent that my kids come from school. I'm not specifically saying, what did you do today? Going through a questionnaire. But I do want to know, basic idea of what is it that they're learning in school. How is it that you're being challenged? Because I know one of my children is being, sometimes when I see him behaving in such a way, I immediately call the teacher and I say, I think he's not being challenged enough. And that's when the teacher says, okay, Miss Aponte, I need you to come in and let's talk about, what can we do? What's the plan? Okay,
that's great. So you take note of things and you let the teacher know. So you have a definite communication, a link with the school that your children, or the schools that your children go to. Now, in your organization, first tell me, what is the mission of TOC?
So the mission of TOC is preparing parents and letting them know that we are the first teachers, that we are advocates, therefore we are going to be in the upfront, fighting for the rights of the children, that we also going to be organized in a way that we're not just talking about issues that maybe are not as important as it should be, but we're going to be looking for research out there. We're going to bring what's important for the administration, the Board of Education, to really listen to us and say, wow, this group is really prepared. They're really organized. They know what they're talking about. One of the things that we brought many years ago was the fact that there was no books given out for children to do their homework.
I mean, to take home?
To take home, yes. So I remember my 5th grader being in Betsy Ross. She had a math homework to do, and I wasn't able to help her. And I'm a college graduate, but I didn't take math, since how many years? So I totally forgot how to do, the math problem that she was working with. And this is when we started talking about, and other parents were feeling the same way, and we brought this to the administration. And they were able to respond and say, yes, this is a need. This is supposed to be happening. We don't know why it's not happening, but we're going to make sure.
So because you didn't have the textbook, because the child wasn't able to bring a textbook home, you couldn't look to see, get directions about how to do it.
Absolutely.
Now, I really applaud that. My next question, though, is when, there are times when children behave at school very differently from they behave at home. How does TOC, as an organization, school parents in helping the teachers to understand what are some of the issues the child might be facing outside of school, because those issues might affect the way the child behaves in school. And when a teacher has 22 to 26 students in a classroom to manage, it can be very challenging if that teacher has to deal with behaviors that are contrary to a harmonious learning environment. How does your organization, how do the parents in your organization help the school in that regard?
So we always talk about having that open communication between parents and teachers. I know that we can do more. I know that we need to work more in that relationship and building that relationship. A lot of parents, they mention to us when we're having our meetings that they don't feel welcome in schools, and you know, it's our duty as a group to go to that school, particular school, speak to the principal and speak to other administrators and let them know, look, parents are coming to us and they're saying that they don't feel comfortable. What is it that we can do in order for us to better this atmosphere, right? Because that's important. Parents, they need to feel comfortable in order for them to go to their school. So once they're there, okay, how is it that I'm going to communicate with my teacher? Sometimes language is a barrier. And, you know, a lot of our schools have bilingual either secretaries or principals or staff that can help parents, but sometimes that can be very difficult because they're pulling out sometimes teachers from the classrooms to translate for those parents that want to have that conversation with teachers.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the cultural piece. You brought up this thing about language, and language is certainly an issue, and I think it works both ways. I think when we look at barriers to effective communication in our school system, language is definitely one of those things. Perception is another, because it's not always that the teacher is not responsive at all. Sometimes the parent doesn't feel comfortable approaching the teacher with issues the parent had, because the parents might feel, I don't know how to articulate my concern. How does your organization train parents, if they do? And I think some time ago I heard that you do conduct training for parents.
Absolutely.
How do you help those parents to take responsibility for communicating their concerns, or finding a resource to help them, such as a translator, to go to the school? What do you do at TOC that helps parents deal with this?
So one of the things that we do is we first let them know that they need to feel comfortable, right? They need to feel comfortable in bringing topics that maybe are difficult for them to express because either culturally or the language barriers, but they first need to be comfortable with themselves and know who they are, right? They are the parents. They know what's best for their child. They know their children better than the teachers and other staff people in the building. So first they need to understand that. Then we can talk about how is it that we can communicate. Well, sometimes, you know, your schedule is going to be different from the teacher's schedule. So let's see what we can do in order for us to, let's say maybe an evening meeting if you work during the day, or a day meeting if you work during the evening. So, you know, at these, you mentioned the economics, you know, the unemployment rate, people working 2 and 3 jobs. Parents are very tied up. They are worrying more about how to bring ends table, right? Food in their table. So it's very hard for parents to also concentrate on what is it that their children need in their school, but it's very important for them not to neglect that part. So in order for them to do that, they really need to have that open communication. Sometimes I'm not available on the phone, but teachers already know that by email I'm more open to respond immediately.